Hello, my name is Shojun. I'm a Regent Minister of Choshoji Temple in Yamaguchi. I'm honored to have been invited as a guest speaker for this wonderful opportunity to share the Buddha Dharma together with you. Today, I'd like to share my thoughts about what it means to walk the path of life with Jodo Shinshu or Shin Buddhism. Especially, I'd like to share with you the characteristic of Jodo Shinshu or Shin Buddhism within the overall context of Buddhism. The reason I'd like to talk about this topic goes back to our experience I had during my grad school days in America. Before going to the US, I had studied the basics of Shin Buddhism at Ryukoku University, which is the oldest Shin Buddhist institution in Kyoto with a history dating back over 400 years, and then continued my studies at the Institute of Buddhist Studies in Berkeley, California. After I began my studies in the US, the very first question I got from the fellow student who wasn't Shin Buddhist was, is Shin Buddhism really Buddhism? I was so shocked to hear such a question. Of course, Shin Buddhism is Buddhism. I never imagined that I would be asked such a very basic question. But then I realized that one preconceived notion that everyone was familiar with Shin Buddhism as a major path in Buddhism might not be so obvious. The foundations of Shin Buddhism were established by Shinran Shonin about 800 years ago in Japan. So for me, as a nameless follower, it's only natural to recognize Shin Buddhism as Buddhism. However, for non-Japanese or those who might not be familiar with Japanese history, Shin Buddhism might seem somewhat out of place or contrary to general Buddhist thought and practice. Just look at me. I'm a good example of the contrast between Shin Buddhism and other Buddhist paths. Although I'm wearing the robes of the Japanese Buddhist priest, I do not shave my head. I'm married, and I'm not a vegetarian. I'm follow a completely different life path than the Theravada Buddhist monks who wear the orange-colored robes and have shaved heads. And I'm not required to follow any of the established Buddhist precepts, yet I can call myself a Buddhist priest. By the time I conclude my presentation, I hope you will come to firmly understand why Shin Buddhism is Buddhism and how its central and most compassionate teaching is to save those like myself who can't be saved. In order to lay the groundwork, I'd like to briefly summarize the basics of Shakamuni Buddha's teachings. Then I will go on to explain why the teaching of Shin Buddhism was born and how it works for each of us in the present 21st century. So let's begin with a basic summary of what is the Buddha's message. Typically, people think that they have to eliminate all suffering in order to become a Buddha. Do you know what the term Buddha means? The word Buddha means an awakened one. I show my PowerPoint data. So Buddha means awakened one. This is the meaning. And then for Buddhists, the suffering I can referring to is the unsatisfactory mind. This is unsatisfactory mind. So this unsatisfactory mind emerged from dukkha, which is an ancient Indian word from the Pali language, which means suffering, unhappiness, or pain. However, the meaning of suffering in Buddhism is different from the general meaning of suffering in our daily life in today. So now let's take a minute and then try to recall something about that made you suffer recently. So did you something happen to you today, or maybe yesterday, or even a week or months ago, or no longer longer than created suffering for you? So please try to recall the suffering you got recently. the spiritually recall an incident which caused you to suffer. I'm pretty sure each of you will have at least one or two episodes where we felt we are suffering, right? So, okay, now let's look more deeply into this episode of suffering. Please consider why did you suffer from this event or episodes? What caused the suffering? So suffering is very interesting and a unique experience. If there are 50 people in a room, there will be 50 different sufferings. Likewise, if there are 1,000 people in a room, there will be 1,000 sufferings. So however, the root cause will always the same, only one reason. And there is only one reason and that is the unsatisfactory mind. In Buddhism, suffering means unsatisfactory mind. This is what is very, very important to remember if you want to walk the Buddhist path. Please remember this fact, otherwise you will misunderstand Buddhism. Buddhism is the path to resolve the unsatisfactory mind. This is what Buddhist path is all about. In most Buddhist paths or teaching, one can achieve enlightenment, awakening, or realization through following strict practices such as abiding by the 5 precepts. So these most basic 5 precepts in Buddhism are, I share the PowerPoint it again. So to abstain from taking life, to abstain from taking what is not given, to abstain from sensual misconduct, to abstain from false speech, to abstain from intoxicants which tend to cloud the mind. Among various practices, the most traditional and generic Buddhist practice to solve the suffering or unsatisfactory mind would be to follow the 8 Four Noble Paths. So 8 Four Noble Paths are right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right meditation, or concentration. So following this path means that we must constantly focus our lives on this practice every moment of our daily life. However, these 8 practices are not by any means such an easy task to follow the all time, right? If we were to seriously live with and abide by these 8 practices, most likely we would need to leave society and live in seclusion by ourselves. However, even if we could detach ourselves from the society and the world, we would still have our human suffering. This is called bonno in Japanese. Here, bonno in Japanese. And it is self-centered calculation or endlessly calculating mind. As long as we live, we cannot discard this mind, this bonno. Unconsciously, our mind are always calculating how we can benefit ourselves through our physical and verbal actions. Each action of our mind and body is a calculated act to satisfy our endless and self-centered ego. We may not want to accept this truth of human existence, this truth of my existence, but this is our true and only nature. With this realization of my endlessly calculating mind to satisfy my ego, it isn't possible to attain enlightenment, awakening, or realization in this life through my own ego-filled efforts. This is the cornerstone of Shin Buddhist path. To come to the realization that we can be saved or liberated or become a Buddha, awakened one by own effort is the start point of Shin Buddhism. Shinran Shonin, the founder of Shin Buddhism, showed us the way which makes it possible for even a person like myself to become a Buddha through the working of Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha is one of the many Buddhas that were introduced to the world through the teaching of Shakamuni Buddha. So the Amida Buddha. So Amida Buddha is meaning the term Amidas. It comes from the Amita use or Amitabha, which makes the which means immeasurable light or immeasurable life. So therefore, Amida Buddha is the Buddha of immeasurable light or life. And it is said that Amida Buddha resides in his land called Pure Land, and which is located in the far western direction. In the Pure Land, one no longer has suffering. Thus, it is the perfect place where we can practice the Buddhist ideals and receive enlightenment. Then we can become a Buddha. Shinran Shonin taught us the way or path to be liberated from the many suffering of our life, including birth and death. Amida Buddha made a great promise that each and every one of us will be liberated from all of life suffering and hardships, and then can return to the Pure Land when this human life ends. But when is it that makes what is I know? What is that makes Shinran Shonin teachings so special? So what makes his understanding so important for you and I? Please allow me to introduce you to one of the most important foundations of Shin Buddhist path, the concept of Akunin Shoki. So Akunin Shoki. Has anyone heard the term Akunin Shoki? The term Akunin means evil or bad person. And Shoki means right purpose. So Akunin Shoki literally means the realization that the supreme purpose of Amida Buddha's existence is to save the evil person. How this Shinran Shonin see the Amida Buddha's embrace of Akunin, a person like me? One of Japanese Buddhism all-time classic writing is called the Tanisho. This text, which was compiled over 500 years ago, remains one of the most widely read Buddhist texts even today. The Tanisho is a compilation of some of Shinran Shonin's teaching that were remembered by Shinran Shonin's disciple Yu Enbo after Shinran Shonin's passing to prevent misunderstanding and misinterpretation of Shinran Shonin's teaching. In chapter 3 of Tanisho, it states, even a good person attains birth in the Pure Land. So it goes without saying that an evil person will do so all the more. Does this sentence make sense to you? Let me repeat it again and listen carefully to each word. Even a good person attains birth in the Pure Land. So it goes without saying that an evil person will do so all the more. Can you grasp what Shinran Shonin is trying to say? Listen to this phrase for the first time. You are probably really confused, just as I was too. As I already said, the term for evil person is Akunin. However, the term Akunin does not only mean evil person. It also means truly honest person who realizes one's evil nature. In order to further explain this important concept, let me introduce one more passage written by Shinran Shonin, in which he explained the evil nature of human existence in a deeper dimension. There is another very important story in the Tanisho. This is a story about conversation between Shinran Shonin and his disciple, Yuenbo, and it appears in Tanisho chapter 13. Let's show. So this is chapter 13. So Shinran Shonin once asked Yuenbo, so you accept all that I say? Yes, I do, Yuenbo answered. Then will you not deviate whatever I tell you? Shinran Shonin again asked. Yes, I humbly affirm this, replied Yuenbo. Thereupon Shinran Shonin said, then I want you to kill 1,000 people. If you do, you will definitely attain birth in the Pure Land. Yuenbo responded, though you instruct me to do so, I'm afraid it is not in my power to kill even one person. Then why did you say that you would follow whatever I told you? Asked Shinran Shonin. Shinran Shonin continued, by this, you should realize that again, I show you the I'm sorry. Let's scratch the button here. Shinran Shonin continued, by this, you should realize that if you could always act as you wish, then when I told you to kill 1,000 people in order to attain birth, you should have immediately done so. But since you lack the karmic cause inducing you to kill even a single person you do not kill, it is not that you do not kill because your heart is good. In the same way, a person may wish not to harm anyone and yet end up killing us hundreds or thousand people. So we all are just like Yuenbo. Haven't you experienced a similar situation in your one daily life? Perhaps, for example, you didn't mean to hurt or speak ill of others, but it happened as a result of something. We too share the same existence that is impossible to comprehend and understand. Shinran Shonin showing us that everyone possesses potentially evil human nature. When we really realize this, we struggle against one's self-centered mind. However, this realization drives us to live truthfully and honestly while keeping in mind one's potential evil nature. Such a person will be embraced and saved by Amida Buddha. This is what Shinran Shonin emphasized through his most important realization of Akunin Shoki. Shinran Shonin did not conclude his teaching by just pointing out our true human nature. He taught us that we can live with a smile and a heart filled with gratitude while reflecting on our true existence through Amida's work. Lastly, before I conclude my message today, please allow me to share a story, a person who has liberated by Shinran Shonin's understanding of Akunin Shoki. Last year, I was invited as a guest speaker at the temple in Nagasaki-ken, and I spoke about Akunin Shoki in my message. After my talk, while I was taking a break in my guest room, a middle-aged woman appeared at the door. She greeted me and expressed her appreciation to my talk. Then she started to shed tears and cry. I was greatly surprised and didn't know what she was crying. After a few minutes, she thanked me as she expressed her personal liberation from her deep guilt by hearing of Shinran Shonin's teaching of Akunin Shoki and Amida Buddha's working to save all beings. She told me her life experience of how, at the age of only 47 years old, she had to start taking care of her mother, who was no longer able to live by herself because of dementia. Being an only child, she had no choice, had to take care of her old mother along with her own family, which was composed of her husband and two daughters. Can you guess how many years she took care of her mother? Shedding tears, she told me that she spent 14 long and hard years taking care of her mother in addition to providing for her family. I'm sure some of you will understand what this woman must have gone through for 14 long years. While she was taking care of her mother, she would hit and abuse her mother so many times because of her stress. And then finally, after her mother passed away, she felt no sorrow. Moreover, she felt it was a relief. Finally, I can be free. Can you imagine how one could feel a sense of freedom upon the death of one mother after caring for her for 14 long years? However, after her mother's passing, she would have nightmares of guilt in how she had treated her mother. She admitted me that she felt so bad in how she had abused her mother that she could not sleep at night. Even though she was freed from having to take care of her mother, her past behavior and action really bothered her, and then she thought she was certainly destined for hell upon her own death. From Amida's viewpoint, such a person who is suffering due to one's nature and life's hardship is a prime target of liberating. It is like trying your best to do something, but you just can't seem to do it. For example, my 4-year-old daughter now wants to do everything by herself. She tried to so hard to button her shirt or sleeves, but with her small fingers, it's just not possible. Then she starts crying. It's cute, right? If you were to see my daughter's situation, I'm sure you would want to hug her and then button her shirt for her. Amida Buddha's feeling for her truly honest person, even though one may be filled with an evil nature or evil the person is the same. Through listening to the Dharma during my talk, this woman came to understand the meaning of Akunin Shoki and realized that she was exactly the reason for Amida Buddha's promise. She cried tears of heartfelt appreciation for the Amida Buddha's promise to embrace her. And then she shared with me how she now had a deep love for her mother, even though she had passed away. And with this newfound understanding of Nembutsu in her life, she once again was able to appreciate life with her family. Just like this one story, none of us know what we would say or do in a similar circumstances. Basically, we know we should strive to live a life of gratitude and selflessness, as these are essential teaching of Shakamuni Buddha. However, we know we aren't perfect. We honestly and deeply look into our own nature. We can never deny the presence of a dark nature filled with selfishness and self-centered calculation. We realize how we truly are a totally hopeless being and one that is far away from enlightenment or Buddhahood. However, when we truly realize this, we can find true embracing and liberation just as we are through the Amida Buddha's working. This is the path of Shin Buddhism, the path of Namo Amida Butsu. Gratefully, this is my only path. In closing, let us hand together in Gasho to express our appreciation to Shinran Shonin, who realized the immeasurable blessing of Amida Buddha that all beings, including you and myself, can be saved just as we are. This is a great contribution of Shin Buddhism to the universal Buddhist way of life. 南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏、南無阿弥陀仏。